Hey there, folks. Okay, so in this training, we're going to talk about ways to market or how to become a freelancer if you are an introvert. Okay, so I am not going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about websites or places where you can post that you do freelance work, because you're really just going to be there with a bunch of your competitors, and the rates aren't necessarily the best. So I want to talk about kind of branding yourself so that you can make that a little bit easier. So of course, you don't have to be an introvert, but let's quickly talk about some of the problems that introverts have in regards to kind of marketing their business. So problems introverted freelancers face. Like, usually they're not interested in speaking to strangers about their business, right? Like, you have to talk to people in order to get more clients, but you're not necessarily interested in that, right? The second one is consistent struggle with wanting to get more customers, but not wanting to put themselves out there. This is a constant struggle because you have to kind of go back and forth. And if you're wired to be relatively, like, again, introverted, you can kind of struggle with that a little bit. So, hey there, good morning. So let's go into it. Enjoy the working part, but hates the marketing to people part. So that is me through and through. I like putting the tech solutions together in the background and all that, but when it comes to like marketing my business, I'm not gonna lie, even though that's what I do for other people, I don't like doing it for myself. So I understand what some of the struggles some introverts may go through, and we're going to talk about that in ways to kind of automate the process. All right. Now, of course, the feast to famine stage. You don't have to be a freelancer. You can just in business in general, if you don't have a consistent way to bring in leads, you're going to understand this feast to famine stage. And basically what that happens is you go market, you get clients, and you're so busy working with your clients and you don't have a consistent system coming in to get new clients, that once you're done with the work with those new clients, now you're like, oh shoot, now I have to market and get more clients. And you do this back and forth. And that's kind of the case with a lot of solo entrepreneurs, freelancers, that type of thing. So we're going to talk about that in the training. So the first thing is, of course, you are going to determine your skill or actionable results that you can provide. So I understand that there are a lot of people who want to get more business, but they have a hard time explaining how they benefit the actual customer. And this is important for you to sit down. And if you're watching this video on a replay, we're streaming it live. Hey there, Emily. Good to see you. We're streaming this live, but if you're watching this in a recorder, go get a piece of paper and go write down what your actionable results are for your client. Because when it's time to write your marketing message and anything else that you would have to write to get customers, you got to be able to say that. It's important to understand that people are going to be in phases of marketing with you. So they may not necessarily know anything about you. They may come across your brand for the first time. And it is your job to make it very clear to them as to why they would want to work with you. And if you don't do that, or if you don't know how to articulate that, it's going to be really hard to close clients for your business. Okay, so let's go back. Go ahead, write down what your actionable results are, and this is kind of what they may look like. Let me think of let's say you do marketing, for example, and even for my clients, I want to know where they are in their current process, like how many clients, how many leads do they get, what is their conversion rate, that type of thing. So I can say, after I left you or after I started working with you, this is the result, this is the growth that I provided. So when you have more and more clients, you're able to say that. So think about that in the process of when it's time to write your message. This is what you're going to say as to the benefit that you give. It's not enough to just say, I'm a web designer, I'm a writer, I'm a this, I'm a that. What benefit are you going to provide to your customer? Hey there, Jessica. Thanks for joining us. All right. So now, did you see what I did there? Now I want you to look at everything we just did so far, what I just did so far, and reverse engineer this, right? Because in a minute, we're going to talk about your target audience and why that's important. Now, in the title of this video, and if you're here with me live, people who see the recording are going to understand probably a little bit more, but the title of this is for introverts, okay? Obviously, it could apply to anyone, but in the beginning, we talked about the problems that introverts experience specifically. So whatever your industry is, whatever your target market is, think about the problems that they face and how you or your business can solve that. Okay, just write down the problems that they have. So let's say, for example, I'm a contractor and I specifically remodel kitchens. Okay, so one, if I want my client to be a homeowner, I already know that there's certain objections that someone in that space may have already experienced because they may have worked with contractors before. Maybe they weren't reliable. Maybe they didn't show up on time. Maybe they didn't finish the work. So it is my job in my marketing and my writing to reassure the client as to how I take care of that. How do I take care of my client better than someone else? Because what you have to remember is a lot of people who hire a service, that's not their first time hiring it. Okay, so consider their problems and consider their potential objections and write that down, because at some point, for my introverts, you're going to have to write or create content to drive people to your business. Okay, all right, so let's talk about your target audience. Now, I did a full training on target audience, and so if you're meeting me for the first time, go ahead and go to my playlist of Digital Nomad, and I did a video specifically on target audience. This is the most important thing you're going to do. You have to get super specific as to who your target audience is. It is not enough to say a small business. It is not enough to say that it's women. It's entirely too general. You want your customer to be able to raise their hand and say, oh, that sounds like me. So even with the title of this video, there are chances that someone, introverts like myself, saw introvert and was like, okay, wait, what we got to do? What's going on? That's what you need to do in your business. Okay, that's what you need to be super clear as to how. Oh, I didn't turn off the notifications. My bad, y'all. It's going to be super clear as to how you are going to, see, I got distracted. This is why it's live. What am I talking about? What was I talking about? Oh, God. What was I talking about, y'all? Oh, okay. I got it. So you have to be very, very clear as to what who your target audience is so that you can tell them that this is how they solve the problem. So let's go here. Now, this is going to be the thing that gets you clients as an introvert. We're going to go over some real world examples toward the end. And of course, anyone who's here with me live, I'll answer your questions. But you're going to create some extremely helpful content piece, right? And this can be done in a variety of ways. You can do it, in a blog post. You can do it in a case study. You can do it in a video. You can do it in whatever way you want to. It has to be extremely valuable. Now, you can't make it helpful if you did not determine very specifically who your target market is. And let me explain why. If you are in a situation where, let's go back, I always use the web designer example, but you can't be all things to all people. If you specify, I do web design for restaurants, Michelin star restaurants, that industry has a specific set of problems. So when you present your content to them, they can already read it or absorb it and know that you know what you're talking about based on that audience. If you're an accountant and there's certain things that you see that people are having issue in a certain industry, and you explain what that problem is and how your organization solves it, then more than likely you are already going to get the business from that person. So let's say if you have a car dealership and you're looking for an accountant, aren't you going to want to deal with an accountant that deals with car dealerships? Are you going to want to deal with the accountant who deals with hair salons and pet stores and restaurants? No, you want to deal with someone specific that can help you with your problem. And that is what you have to consider when you are freelancing and running your business, right? So you're going to create some useful content. So when I used to do digital marketing for dentists, for cosmetic dentists, I didn't really want to talk to dentists because I'm an introvert. I didn't really want to go and do that. So what I did was I created a video. I know there are a lot of business owners, but dentists specifically have a hard time knowing how to market online. The service that I had was creating digital campaigns for dentists. At that time, I don't do it anymore. So what I did was I created I created an hour-long training, and then I did 2 5-minute quick trainings, okay? If you know what you're doing in your industry, the person that you want to help, it's not going to take, let me say that, well, it's so much that you know in your industry that they just don't know much. So teaching them the process is going to be substantially helpful. So I did a video specifically for dentists showing them how they can get clients online, right? And that is what, oh, did I push the wrong button? That is what I provided. Now, if I wanted to reach out through email, because that's how I did it, because I didn't want to do cold calling and all that, I sent them to the video that I created that was completely informational. Okay, that is where I sent the dentist. Now, before I did dentist, that was still general. I had to go specifically to cosmetic dentists because, again, when you're choosing your audience, you got to make sure that your audience can actually afford to pay you. So cosmetic dentists, if I got them clients, one client was worth anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000. So if I got them clients, it was easy for them to justify that they had this they were working with this marketing agency because they were bringing in high level clients. So with general dentist practitioners, which I learned when I started, it can be all across the board in regards to pricing. Okay. So when you think about this audience, you want to think about an audience that can actually afford to use your services. Okay. So develop the content. Yes. So I would send them to the video that I created, showing them ways that they can market their business, that they can actually implement themselves. That's also the key thing there. I told them tips that they can implement themselves. They didn't have to hire me. And so that's what you really have to decide. Now, most businesses do not have time to do that. So whatever your industry is, don't operate from a place of just holding on to this information. Like, share your knowledge, share your information with your potential client so they know what they're getting into and they know that you could potentially help them, okay? So I want you to consider that. And let's go to, where was my last slide? Where were we? Okay, create the helpful content. Hey there. Hey, Pharaoh. What's going on? All right, so that's to create the useful content. Now, determine the appropriate distribution channel based on your target audience. This is going to be key. And again, it's going to tie back down to your target market, because you may not know where your audience is hanging out if you're saying that you do this service for everybody. So for me, in the example of the dentist, there are certain credit hours that they have to, a lot of professionals have to extend their credit hours in education. Going in that direction to find out how they do that, where they do that, you will get a surplus of people in that industry. So whether you're talking about dentists, any form of doctor, there's always a continuing education part. And if I come in as a speaker, which I did often, to talk about how they can better run their practice with digital ads, or whatever the case may be, usually I was providing educational content, so I didn't necessarily have to market on the cold call, right? So I'm telling you this because I really want you to get the wheels turning in your own business as to how can you take that, the things that you know, the things that you have your expertise and you know how to do, create content. Now, I'm going to tell you, the more content that you create, the easier it is for you to set up a system where there are going to be leads continuously coming to you. But for right now, if you haven't created that one epic piece of content, do that. But make it super specific as to who you are targeting to. Because again, you want your customer to be able to raise their hand and say, oh, it sounds like this person can help me. And they can do that if you're saying you do this for everybody. So for my introverts, if you don't want to do a lot of cold calling or networking events and things like that, go ahead and create the content. You can do this in video. You can do this in written format. You can do it in a variety of different ways, but create it. Make sure it is amazing, it is informative, and the person leaving the content, which is your client, your potential client, feels enlightened after they left it. That's going to be important, okay? So yeah. All right. So determine your distribution channels. Now, some of your distribution channels, you guys know I'm a fan of YouTube, but you might want to consider LinkedIn. You might want to consider, again, we talked about continuing education types of programs. And when we do our Q&A, if you have something specific we can talk about that, and we'll also talk about some real world implications at the end. So, hey, for those of you who are joining me live, feel free to type your comments if you have any while I'm talking. Put a Q in front of your question so that I can answer that and know that you have the question. All right, so we're talking about distribution. All right, now, so after you create this epic piece of content, you need a call to action. So I identified my target market. I created epic content. I send them to it, whether it's through an email or it's some form of education that I put out in the cybersphere. And now I have to have a call to action. What do I want them to do after they view this content? Do I want them to email me? Do I want them to set up an appointment with me? What do I want them to do? And when I was working with dental agencies, I created a content on how to market your business or how to get clients online with digital marketing, right? And so at the end of that video, I put schedule an appointment with me. When they schedule an appointment with me, you guys know I use Acuity software. I ask the questions, are you doing any marketing now? What is your current marketing budget? These are things that I want to know if they would even be a good candidate to work with me. Now again, I didn't even have a conversation with them, okay? We didn't have a conversation yet. I just created content, and that content is what brought them to me. So if you loathe having conversations about your business or talking about yourself because it feels weird or that type of thing, make sure that your content speaks for itself. So again, determine your audience, then create the content, then you're going to do the call to action. Now, I am going to recommend that you automate this process. The reason why the automation process is so important, because again, we talked about with freelancers, you do this feast to famine thing. You go out, you get customers, then you're so busy doing the work that you're not out here marketing. So if you have content, we're talking about one initially, but the more content you put out there, and you guys, I'm big on that, the more content you put out there, the more opportunity you have for more people to find you. And if you have that one piece of epic content, you honestly can just add ads to it. Like you can do some online ads and drive them specifically to that content, and that can produce your customers, and you can be hands off. So that might be a little bit more technical than we're going through the day, but just understand that creating the amazing piece of content, solving problems, showing results is going to be the thing that you want to create in your particular industry for your client in the industry that you are serving. So you want to automate the CTA. So they either click a link, they do something else with software, preferably, that works on that part. You want a welcome sequence. When someone is coming to your call to action, it is super important for you to have a way to communicate with them afterwards. Remember that when someone meets you, they may not be ready to work with you at the moment of meeting you. When I set up the Driven Spice brand, I did the email was the first thing I set up, because I know in business that's the most important thing, almost more important than your website. You have to have some type of email marketing, because if someone decides to work with you a year from now, because that happens, you need to have been able to communicate with them through that whole process. And it's basically putting people into your funnel. That's really all of this is. That's all this is putting people into your funnel. And when they're ready to make a decision, they have easy access to you. So you're going to have a welcome sequence that's just going to really tell them about whatever your business is or how you can help. And then, of course, you follow up. Now, the follow-up sequence is almost more important than the welcome sequence. So many people leave money on the table or they don't close deals because they don't follow up. Now, so that you won't get caught up in this, I'm going to recommend that you automate this process. So most of you all know I use ActiveCampaign. I think it's one of their better email automation softwares. Pick whichever one you want. You don't have to use what I'm using. Use what makes you feel comfortable based on the tech space that you are in. I tend to use software that's not that user-friendly only because I do a lot of things in the back end and they all play nice together. But use a software that works for you. I don't think I put a link in the description today, but I'll put a link on the recording of the Digital Nomad Toolkit if you're interested in some of the software I wear. Also, I am doing a workshop the 14th and the 15th. That link is in the description. I'm going to be teaching about making your first $1,000 online so that once you get that system together, then you can take that and you can scale. So we're going to start off with showing you how to kind of create a funnel with scheduling software, and then we'll speak more of affiliate programs, because those are really the two easiest ways of starting your online income journey. So again, that's the 14th of December and the 15th. So the link to register for that is in the description. So let's go to the next step, distribution. Okay, rinse and repeat. So now we're going to talk about some real world applications. So let's say you have a yoga studio. In your yoga studio, you want more customers. And you happen to know that there's a law firm that is close to your yoga studio. And you may want more lawyers. So this is how thinking outside the box can kind of help you get more customers. Remember when we talked about listing the problems? Think about the attorneys. What are some of the problems that attorneys may face? They're tired, they may not have enough time, they're probably stressed. Write those down. What are the problems of your industry? So that as a yoga studio owner, you can say in your marketing, if you wanted to go to, let's say you're going to the law firm and you're speaking to HR or the front desk and you want to leave something with the company, you can specifically say how a certain yoga session will help the attorneys at this law firm. Like, take that initiative, but you do that because you sat and you thought about, okay, so what are some of the things that lawyers suffer with and how can my yoga studio help that? So this isn't just for if you want to do things online. This is for real world situations as well. So even let's say you're an insurance agent and maybe you want to pick up more clients who are daycare owners. I'm putting, random examples out there. Write down what are some of the issues or things that can happen if you are a daycare owner in regards to insurance. What do they need to be concerned about? If a child gets hurt or a parent wants to sue, what type of insurance can help them protect themselves and their homes and that type of thing? So think very specifically as to who your target audience is and the problems that they have. That way, when you are doing your pitch, whether you are writing it, whether you're doing a video, however you want to do that, you're showing your client that you truly understand what they are going through specifically. This is not the time to do generic marketing. Generic marketing is too expensive and it does not convert. So again, I hope everyone kind of understands. And I see I got some people here with me live. So again, if you have any questions, because once y'all have no questions, I'm out of here. I hope that makes more sense as to how you can market yourself as an introvert. We're going to go over the steps really quickly, just one more time. Go ahead and list down the problems that the person or the target market in your audience faces. This is what you're going to do for yourself in regards to your own research, okay? So determine your target audience. You should already know that. You have to be super, super specific, okay? Please do not have any generic target audience. If anybody's who's here with me live, having any issues determining who your target audience is, give me a little bit of information. I can try to help with that. Create an extremely helpful content piece. Okay, good. These slides are for me, so please forgive any typos you may see in that. But yeah, create an extremely helpful content piece. I told you what I used to do with dentists, and that is how I got clients and didn't have to talk to them until they were ready to actually purchase a service. So consider that, okay? Create something extremely helpful. Now, it is hard to create something helpful for an audience you did not identify. So identify your audience first, okay? After you do that, then you're going to determine your appropriate distribution channel based on your target audience, if they're online or in person. Okay, so if they're online, think about where they are. Where are these people specifically? Where do they hang out? Where do some of their, we talked about continuing education, but what are the things that are required for them to do for their profession, for their business? What do they do? Okay, and you're going to create the content based on that. The good thing about this technique is that you have no competitors in the space. If you wanted to do online marketing, let's say that your target audience was nonprofits in the healthcare space. okay, if you would do online marketing, there's probably a lot of various companies that want that same audience. And now because other people want that audience, you have to pay more to be in front of them. Versus if there's a particular conference they're going to, or there's certain, you have to research that audience a little bit more. You can go directly to the people who organize it and say, I want to do a free presentation that explains how nonprofit organizations, if they set up X, Y, and Z, they can be more effective in whatever it is you do. Does that make sense? But again, finding out where your target market hangs out is super important. And then creating the content and putting the content there is how you can actually close the deal. And if you do it in a situation where there are a lot of people there, like the continuing education offers are, I love them because you can have 300 of those people in a room. And even if you close 5%, you only have to do that so many times per year. And as an introvert, you can have a better output. So if you create this content, you speak at that event, or you give them information, once you give them the content, that's a way to come back to you and you can stick with them. And then it never fails. Maybe 6 months later, someone saying, hey, yeah, I got this content from you and now I'm really ready to execute. So if you didn't have the content out there, no one would be able to do that with you. So I definitely want you to consider that. So again, find the distribution channels that are appropriate for your audience, and then create the call to action. After they view it, after they experience it, please be clear what you want them to do. You're going to automate this process. You're going to do a welcome sequence and again to a follow-up sequence. Now, because this is all automated with software, fellow introvert, you don't have to say anything. The software takes care of all of that. So by the time someone comes to you, now you are in a situation where they've been vetted, they have information, they're more educated in the process, because usually your content is going to educate them in the process. And so you have a better experience with your potential clients. So no one has any questions. I'm gonna bounce out. Let me make sure I went over everything that I wanted to. I gotta check my what was I saying? Okay, yeah, I think I went everything. I didn't turn all of that stuff off. So for my folks who are here with me live, do you have any questions? We got a small audience. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? All right, folks. So again, if you want to join me on December 14th and 15th, I'll be teaching a workshop on how to make your first $1,000 online. We're going to spend time on the scheduling. So for my coaches, my consultants, and that type of thing, how to create the software, or program the software so that you can easily transition from payment onto the class. Now, for those of you who are signing up for the class is the how to make your first 1K online, and the link's in the description for the dates and all that. But I'm making that one super basic in regards to not having the sales page, so that you can see that this is the same way you can implement this in your business. If you're a consultant or you're a coach, you don't need to have a website. You will need some type of software that can automate the process for you. Okay, so if you are having a group course, so even for like if you're a football, well, anything you could do online, if you can do it with a Zoom, and you can teach it on Zoom. Most of the calendar softwares that exist will connect with Zoom, Google Meets, Join Me, all of that. So it's just a very easy process to give your insight for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And that, I'm going to show you how you can make that at least your first 1,000. And the reason why we're talking about your first 1,000 is so that you can learn the basic steps so that you can scale. Because I really find that people aren't being realistic in regards to making income online. They'll say they want to make this large amount, but they don't know how to do the basics. So that's what we're going to talk about in the workshop, where we're going to talk about the basics. You're so welcome, Emily. So is that it? Yeah. Any questions for me while I'm here? This was great information. So glad it was helpful, hon. Let me see, because I tried to, oh, it did. This is the first time I edited and it worked. Thank you. Okay, guys, good. If no one has any questions, going once, going twice, I am going to head out. I'll try to do some more training this upcoming next couple weeks. I'm going to take off the last 2 weeks of December. But for the upcoming year, so that as we go into this new year, people feel more confident as to how they're going to set up their life online. And just know that you can start off at the very basic bootstrap level. Don't think you have to invest all of this money just to get out there. You are going to have to put some time into it and some energy, and you really have to define who your target market is. If you don't define your target market, all of this is null and void. You are going to really struggle. And I struggled I went out a lot of times with my first couple companies because I didn't do a good job doing that. That is why I'm like beating you over the head with getting you to understand who your target market is. So thank you. Let's see. You're always helpful and transparent. I appreciate you, honey. Thank you. Will this series be starting in January? No, the series is actually starting. It's not really a series. It's just, let me make sure I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the workshop I'm teaching? Because that's just 2 days, the 14th and the 15th. If that's what you're talking about. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about. So if that's what you're talking about, yes. Okay, folks, I am out of here since we don't have any more questions. I know I just randomly came on live because I wanted to get the content out there. So sorry, no one got emails or anything like that. But I will see you all soon. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the comments and I'll try to help out with that. Till then.